NFL season's right around the corner, so let's get you guys ready for your upcoming fantasy drafts with our guest, Mike Wright, co-host of the Fantasy Footballers, which is the #1 most listened to fantasy football podcast out there on Spotify and Apple. Mike, thanks for hopping on, man. I had to do you justice with the intro.
Oh, man, I really appreciate that. Thank you for having me on. It is the season. People are getting pumped. Fantasy football, it's in the air. It's tangible now.
I can smell it. I can smell it and taste it in the air. I'm glad to have you on because I'm tired of people hitting me up every year before the start of the season, like, which Giant or Jet should I start? My name ain't Joe Shane or Joe Douglas. Let's ask Mike Wright. So when it comes to the Jets, which Jets players do you like in fantasy this upcoming season?
Sure. So we'll start at the top. Breece Hall is one of we have like 3 running backs this year with Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, and Bijan Robinson. Those are kind of the big 3 where you feel confident, one, in their abilities. Breece Hall is an absolute dynamic and electric player. But finding a team that trusts one running back to be like a workhorse, a bell cow, that 3-down guy, that's going extinct in the NFL. So when you can find them, and Breece Hall is one of those guys, so I mean, he should be able to come through here in a big way. Another year removed from the ACL, you could see it kind of over the second half of the year that the burst is coming back for him, and he will absolutely be the main guy. And it's the revenge tour for all of us fantasy nerds that didn't get to see the peak of Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson because of the unfortunate injury to Aaron Rodgers there right at the beginning of the year. But Breece Hall is a locked and loaded first-round pick, easy selection. Yeah, and the man he's got vengeance and violence on his hands for being left out of the top 100 players list in the NFL. So you saw him tweet out, my man's about to run crazy. I've always been a Breece Hall guy. All right, let's flip over to the East Rutherford, New Jersey. Who are some of the Giants players that you like? And anybody who hit me up, I'm just going to copy and paste this link. Don't hit me up about Giants players. Mike, take it. So Malik Neighbors is, that's the big story here. The rookie, top 10 pick. A lot of you could hear the whispers out there. A lot of things being talked about of like him being right there with Marvin Harrison Jr. in terms of a prospect. And everything I studied about Malik Neighbors, I don't hate that take at all. His ADP or his average draft position, it's a little bit rich when you're out there, especially. He's actually the second highest drafted rookie that we've ever seen in fantasy football. And Daniel Jones coming off of his own injury, and we've never seen Daniel Jones be an elite prolific passer. Now, chicken egg, let's be fair to Daniel Jones, he hasn't had players like Malik Neighbors out there for him in his short career thus far. So can he actually support that? He's going to be an absolute target hog. Talking about Malik Neighbors, the reports from training camp, it's just, you're like, oh, another 10 targets or whatever for Malik Neighbors. So the volume should be there. It just comes down to, can Daniel Jones actually get it done for Malik Neighbors? Because he will have to see, close to 30% of the targets if we're going to see that lower passing volume from Daniel Jones. Not that Neighbors can't hit that. It's just it's a bit of a pricey bet there when you have known veterans going right around Neighbors in fantasy drafts.
I've been at a lot of the training camp practices. I've shot some content with Malik. I can say that this kid is a complete dog, and I'll put my stamp of approval on when people call him OBJ 2.0. Just want to see how that offensive line holds up, to see if Daniel can sling it and Malik can cook. So if the offensive line can hold up, would Daniel Jones be a QB2? Would he be a good QB2 option, at least?
QB2, it's definitely possible. Okay. We had the surprise year just a couple years ago where it was, I think he was over 700 rushing yards.
Yep.
And if you're playing fantasy football or you're new to it, if a quarterback can run, it's way more valuable than a quarterback who's throwing the ball, because just normal scoring is a quarterback gets, a 1 point per either 20 or 25 passing yards. Meanwhile, they get 1 point for 10 rushing yards. So when they give you that, that's why Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, these are like the elite players, because they're doing work with their arm, but they're doing a ton of work with their legs as well. And until we know that Daniel Jones is good to go again in that area, QB2 would be kind of the upside for him. So he's not really on most radars for fantasy football drafts. We just got to hope that he can come through for Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, that knee's looking good. I've seen him turn the corner a couple times in practice on the defense. He looks confident in the knee, but like you said, if those two can get together and have that chemistry, it's going to be magic. You mentioned Jalen Hurts earlier. Saquon Barkley is now an Eagle. Now that he's down in Philly, does that make him more valuable? Like, do you think his fantasy production is going to go up or are those numbers going to go down?
It is a fascinating thing that we get to talk about, and we get to see it play out. Jalen Hurts has been an absolute monster for fantasy football because once they get down to the 1, sometimes even the 2-yard line, with Jason Kelce in the past, it was an automatic. No one can actually really stop the tush push.
Yeah.
And Jalen Hurts is just reaping all the benefits for fantasy football. We do know that DeAndre Swift, who was their lead back last year, he actually had more carries inside the 5 than people realize. He just was a professional at getting tackled at the 1.
Okay.
Maybe he had Jalen Hurts on his fantasy team and knew that he wanted to get some of those points. Where if Saquon Barkley gets those carries inside the 5, I think we're going to see a lot more of those actually converted into rushing touchdowns for the running back. So that's the huge deal. And then on top of that, Saquon has always come through for us for when he's on the field of an elite pass catcher. Can we get enough targets? Can we get a target share to Saquon Barkley that will satisfy the needs that like just all of the volume that we actually need from Barkley in that area? Those are TBD. But right now he feels like he's a pretty good bet for fantasy.
Yeah, one thing about 2-6, that man's going to finish his breakfast. Going to finish the breakfast and finish those runs.
Yes.
So, sorry, Swift, but the new 2-6 coming into town, I definitely see the tush-push being the thing of the past. Last but not least, Mike, since I got you on, fantasy sleepers across the league. There's a lot of people looking at this, and they want to know, like, who could they get in some of the lower rounds that can give them some great value?
Sure. We call these the nasty boys because it can feel bad when you're drafting, but just hold on. Give these guys a chance. My favorite guy right now, it's Rico Dowdle of the Dallas Cowboys. Zeke was the big headline of the offseason. He's back. The Cowboy is back in town, but he's an older running back, and we've seen him on the field. He's not the same Zeke as he was all those years ago. And we're getting tons of reports out of Dallas that once the pads went on, it was clear Rico Dowdle was the guy who had the most juice. We just saw a preseason opener where with the starters, Rico Dowdle took every single snap. I don't expect that to happen. That was, a part of it was Zeke was not in the game. But if Rico Dowdle can take over this backfield, let's say he's getting 55% of the work or so, it will be really, really valuable. What Tony Pollard felt like a bit of a letdown last year, but it wasn't for a lack of work. He was still getting all those attempts inside the 5. They were not converting as Tony was recovering from his injury. And Dowdle is pretty much off a lot of draft boards right now. And I'm going to chase that Dallas Cowboys offense and just hope that Dowdle ends up as the starter.
Real quick, Mike, what's the craziest fantasy punishment that you've heard about or even been a part of since you've gotten into this business?
Sure, the tattoos are those ones are pretty wild. And then of course if you haven't heard of I believe we refer to it as the Waffle House Challenge, but it is essentially the loser has 24 hours. You must spend that inside of a Waffle House or whatever, Denny's, just something like that.
Yep.
But then for every pancake you eat, you can knock 1 hour off, and all of us out here thumping our chest like, I could put down 15 of those things easy. Watch someone actually go through it and the pain that you can see on their face as they have ingested far more pancake than they should.
Shoot, I love Waffle House. I might lose on purpose. But we got Wawa out here in New Jersey. Hey, Mike, tell the people where they can find you, man.
Sure, thefantasyfootballers.com. That's our hub. You can find everything there. And the podcast is rolling 5 times a week right now through the end of the NFL season. And that's anywhere you're listening, Spotify, Apple, just anywhere. Just search Fantasy Footballers, and we'll be right there helping you laugh and helping you win.
Appreciate that, Mike. You just saved somebody 24 hours in a Waffle House. Thanks for coming on, man.
I hope so, man. Thank you.